We live in a world ruled by tyranny, where knowledge is suppressed and ignorance is glorified. A world where propaganda and misinformation travel the airways at the speed of lies. But in the midst of the violence and chaos, a great awakening is taking place. And as the media empires continue to collapse, a new network is forming. A network of truth, a network of courage, a network of awareness. Peace and greetings. You are now tuned into the Network of Awareness podcast radio station, where we examine current events, politics, health, finance, and topics of cultural relevance in America and throughout the world, while bringing you insightful interviews with guests that will both educate and inspire you. And now, your host of the Network of Awareness podcast radio station, Aura the Informationalist.
Please just tell me what's happening to me in plain English without the mumbo jumbo.
My aura is a network full of awareness and gifts like Aura, the informationalist.
How you do?
Yes, peace and greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world. You're now tuned in to the live broadcast of the Network of Awareness podcast radio station. I'm your host, Or the Informationalist, and today we have an installment of the Truth Seeker series. And today's episode is called Spirituality versus Religion. And the guest that I'm going to be bringing on today is a man that is currently residing in Mexico, and he's been on a very extensive and long journey studying Kundalini Yoga for over 30 years, which gives him the ability to deeply understand and connect with his clients. Back in 1999, Amrit Singh decided to move to India to deepen his exploration of yoga and meditation. And after 20 years in India, he recently moved to Valle de Bravo in Mexico. Shout out to all the brothers and sisters in Mexico and in India. During all these years, his true passion has always been in helping people through one-on-one coaching, with a special focus on supporting people to create the freedom they need while doing what they love. So without further ado, let's welcome Amrit Singh on to the show, shall we?
Thanks for having me, Aura.
Welcome. And thanks for coming on. You and I were talking about this particular title, and in a very short time we covered a lot as far as when it comes to spirituality and religion. But I think this is a very important topic to discuss, because my personal opinion, based on my research and what I've experienced, I think that religion is very misleading. I think it's a form of control and manipulation, and it tends to divide more than unite. Because even when people unite under the word religion or under a religion, it's almost like you become more divided from that divine source of power that comes from the creator that has created this whole entire universe that we are a part of and an extension of. So my question to you is, what do you think, as far as like spirituality and religion, what do you think are the major differences from your experiences?
Yeah, how we were talking about a little bit already, I really think that religion is a man-made concept. And it's a concept created to keep things, kind of understandable. And in my opinion, it was created as a tool. It was created as a tool to help people understand their spiritual experience. You know, as I said earlier, in my belief, we are not human beings going for a spiritual experience, you know, and having this whatever, oh my God, I felt so spiritual today when I went to a meditation class. But more, we're spiritual beings coming in this world to have this human experience and end up in different continents, in different bodies, in different incarnations, with black skin, with white skin, with curly hair, with straight hair, with, you know, like you name it. But we're all just coming from the same spirit energy, and we're so similar in this way. And I think the problem religion has today in the year 2023 is that what worked 500 years ago and what worked well 500 years ago, because it kind of covered 80% of the village, and you got people kind of to be more calm, and no one was killing people, and like, you know, like they were kind of like they had their shit together a little better. It's just not relevant anymore today. You know, we live in a world where we're sharing in a whole different way. We're connecting in a whole different way. You know, we have social media, we have the internet. We're still figuring out how these things gonna impact us in the future. But ultimately, what was the strength of religion in general over the last couple thousand years, I think is now coming to religion's downfall, because it's limiting religion too much. And the second, you know, like 200 years ago, it might have been a great concept to say, hey, we're from here, you know, and you're from over there. And so we are having the right belief and you obviously have the wrong belief. I mean, we all know that, right? You go to a football match and you're cheering for your team, and obviously the other team is all bad people and they're all cheering for the wrong team. And it's like kind of the same thing, you know? So it's this dividing thing, which on one hand, and I think this example of the football club is a good one, because you wear the colors of the football club, you cheer, you're totally into it, you're like supporting all the decisions. If someone fouls on the field, you're like, oh my God, ref, why are you not calling this? My guy got fouled. It happens to the other guy on the other team. You're like, no, it was probably not a foul. Kind of looked like he just kind of went down, right? So it's this mental belief system we go into, which works well in that little crowd of your football club. But the second you go out in the world and you start talking to fans from the other team, and you realize, even though they wear the wrong colors and they believe in the wrong team, that now suddenly they're kind of nice people and they're normal people like you and me. And you're like, huh, you know, like I was kind of hating them when we were in the match, but now I'm chatting with this guy and having a beer. He seems like a normal dude. I kind of like him. So I'm so confused now what's happening. I'm supposed to hate this guy and go to war against him, right? So I think, again, religion for what it's good for, in a very limiting way, is now getting in its own way, and it's just not evolving quickly enough to probably, you know, for us to witness religion in general's demise over the next 100 years, because it's just not going to be able to keep up in that way.
Absolutely. I agree. And you start to realize that we all come from the same place. I mean, this universe is created with nothing but atoms and different types of minerals that make up the human body. And even though we may have different skin complexions, we're all operating off of the same system, just different variations of that physical expression, but the spirit is the same. The spirit is all going back to that same source for it to basically have that experience through you, being the now the physical form, but still coming as a form of light. And actually, my season that I'm going to be starting for season 6 is the light within you and all around you. And I think that more and more people are starting to understand what that truly means, because religion has really been blocking that understanding. Religion has been putting, as you had mentioned to me earlier, of, and you mentioned it earlier in the broadcast about I'm having the spiritual experience in this physical body. But in reality, you're just a spiritual being. That's what you are. You chose to come here to have the physical experience. And religion has distorted that a lot. And still to present day is doing that. And it's benefiting a small group of people, or sometimes one person that is considered the guru or the head of the congregation or the church. And we've seen it, but a lot of times they're not even churches, they're cults. And I don't sometimes I wonder, when it comes to religion and cult, I don't really see a difference, because they're tied in hand to hand, they're tied in, they're intertwined in reality, because a lot of these churches out here in the United States operate like cults, whether it be through Christianity or Judaism or Islam. It's all cultic like. Now, you practice meditation, and it says here that you through your extensive knowledge and experience of meditation, habit development, and spirituality. Let's talk about meditation and habit development, because I think it's important for the listeners to really understand this. Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, Amrit, is that, you know, meditating develops your habit on how you see yourself in the world and how you want to live the best life, how you want to be completely fulfilled. You have to welcome it into your life, but also envision it and know it to be true, so that it comes from the spirit, the spiritual realm, into the physical, so that way it comes into fruition, into reality. So can you talk about that? And if if you see it a different way from when I explained it, definitely correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, meditation for me is a tool. It's a tool similar to sleep or eating or taking care of your physical body or brushing your teeth or whatever you do, right? It's a tool that allows you to just come a little step closer to yourself. We're born as natural meditators. For the first 9 months of our life in our mother's body, we're meditating every day. We're standing on our head. All we do is being provided for by the universe, which at that point is our mother. And all we do is meditate. All we do is being present. And then even after being born, and being a baby and nursing, it's such a deep meditative experience. If you ever watch a baby, they roll their eyes up, they go into this deep meditative space. It affects the mom, it affects everybody in the house. It's a big thing, this deep level of meditation. And so it's a very human thing to meditate. Also, you can see it again when people exit this lifetime. Like before people die, before people pass, they go into this very quiet state where they don't need to look at their cell phone, where they don't need to read a book, where they don't have to go somewhere, where they don't have to clean something, pick something up, do something in the house, be doing, right? So it's kind of, it brings it back to this, we're meant to be human beings, but we live our lives as human doings. And so all day long, there is something we're doing. Even when we sit still, our hands go like doing something, looking for our phone, trying to like answer an email or read something or get through something or play a level on Candy Crush or whatever it is. No, it's all the same stuff. It's this wanting to do. And just this practice to be, and to be like the baby or be like the old person who's close to the end of their life and ready to preparing for that transition period, and to just be and to observe and to listen and to smell and to feel and to be present and come into the moment of being, not worrying in the future, not being upset about the past, but really be present in the moment and be like, oh my God, my breath is flowing in. I can feel my heartbeat. I can feel the sunlight on my arm. I can feel the air in my face. And guess what? Suddenly you're meditating. That's what meditation is. Meditation is just a practice to getting more comfortable with learning how to live in the present moment.
Great answer. Great answer. How can that help in your habit development? Because that's something that you teach your clients. So, what are some of the things that you focus on when discussing habit development? Because, and I also want to tie in food diet in that as well, because that's something that I need to work on is my diet. I need to stem away from eating greasy foods because I feel like my overall energetic vibration is a little bit lower when I'm eating greasy foods compared to
Oh
when
yeah,
I'm
most
eating
certainly.
something that's more organic
Lighter. Yeah.
and green. Um, but can you talk about what is it that you help your clients when it comes to habit development and why that is such an important um, tool to discuss and develop is our
Yeah.
habits?
So let me make a small comment on the food because I think we can cover that easily. Food is a very personal thing. And so I'm always very careful not to go into, oh, you should be eating like this and that because that's how I eat. And no, like that's not how it works. Food is very personal, depends a lot on what kind of body you have, what kind of foods will you need, what kind of work you do, how much energy you expend, what country you live in. Like, I mean, food depends on so many things. So I'm very, very careful with giving advice on it. But what I found for myself, and this is kind of along with what you just said, when I eat heavy, greasy, lots of carbs, whatever it is, like food that makes me feel heavy. The biggest one for me, honestly, is the overeating. If I eat more than I should have eaten for my body to easily digest or have enough, my energy level drops. I feel like, I need a coffee or I need something to spike my energy. I need sugar. I need something to just get back to normal. And if you don't mind that, then keep eating like that. It's okay. It really like that's your joy in life and you don't mind being 40 pounds overweight. That's your choice. Again, there's no good or bad in here. But if you want to walk away from a meal not being depleted of energy, but actually feel invigorated and full of energy and ready for work, and your brain is working fast, and you can like sit on your computer and edit something for 3 hours straight, and afterwards you still have more energy, then you need to watch what you eat and you need to be smart about it. And there's certain foods, obviously, if you eat lighter and easier digestible foods, which are easier to process, than when you eat the heavy, greasy stuff where your body is like, oh my God, there's going to be some work to get through this. So just that simple. And there's a lot of information on there. So I don't want to go into more details. I want to speak on the other question on the habit development. Habit development is a funny one because really what we're doing is we're playing with our brain and our mind. Our mind has these limitations and we all know it, right? We think something and then suddenly we're like, oh my God, it's because I'm thinking this is the right thing to do or whatever is going on in there. And so it's very similar with habits too. We develop habits by doing things repetitively. And then these habits become part of our identity. And now suddenly we're like, oh, we always do that. We always brush our teeth. Is part of our habit. So now if someone comes along and says, oh my God, brushing teeth is the worst thing, should never in your life brush your teeth again, you're going to be like, what? Because you're having two programs run in your brain, right? One is never brush my teeth again. And the other one is like, but I've been always brushing my teeth, my habit, So in the morning, you kind of go on autopilot brushing your teeth. So developing habits like that is very helpful. So if you develop the habit to exercise every day and that becomes part of your identity, now suddenly exercising is not this big, like, oh my God, should I exercise today? Should I not? Same, if you develop the habit to have a healthy diet, you develop the habit to meditate every day, you develop the habit to smile more, whatever your habit is, as soon as you can get it over a certain amount of days, and it's, the habit development happens between 20 to 40 days when it really starts becoming part of you. So you can see in like less than a month and a half, you can change the way you interact with habits you have, old habits you want to change, and with new habits you want to bring in your life. If, for example, simple example, you want your new habit to be in the morning before you eat any of your greasy breakfast to eat an apple. So now you buy 20 apples and every day you eat an apple. And so after a certain period of time, your body will come into this habit of, hey, where's my apple? I haven't eaten my apple yet. And it becomes this normal thing. So you can adjust your habits in such a way that they serve you, rather than say like, hey, before I get out of bed, I need to smoke a cigarette because it's the only thing gets my heart up. And so that's my habit. You can change that also by replacing that habit and then not living that habit anymore. So I love the habit development thing because it really is probably the best and most efficient way to make an impact on your life by looking at your habits.
Do you think that people form habits for religion and for spirituality? Are there habits that are formed, whether you pursue life spiritually or if you pursue it through a religion? And if so, what are those habits
I
that can
think
be
very
developed?
much. Yeah, I think people like forming habits. And, if your habit is before you go to bed to kneel down next to your bed and say a prayer to your God, and that's something you learned in church and you feel good about that, and that's your habit, I think that's a better habit than smoking a cigarette before you go to bed, in my opinion, right? Or it's a better habit than drinking a beer before bed. So, like what works for you works. So if religion helps you develop some habits, like for example, if it's your habit on Sundays to take your family to church and dress up nicely and go sit and listen to what the priest is preaching about and feel inspired and think about it and think like, oh my God, I wish my life could be more spiritual before you go back into your crazy 6-day work week. Well, that's a habit. And I think it's a positive habit. So again, yes, spirituality uses habits and religion uses habits. And we as humans are very habit driven because we like things to be habitual. It helps our brain. Our brain just relaxes with the habits.
So how can a spiritual discipline help someone become a better version of themselves to where they feel a sense of contentment on a continuous basis?
Well, that takes it back to meditation. For me, ultimately, spirituality comes down to this tool of meditation because, in my experience, is the quickest and most efficient way to come to your spirit, to come to yourself, to come to your true identity. In my spiritual path, we call that the Sat Nam, which Sat means truth, Nam, like name, means identity. And it's a way to connect with your true identity. And your true identity, again, is not your physical body. It's not the color of your hair. It's not if you're a man or a woman. It's not the way you express yourself sexually or what you eat or where you live. Your true identity is so much more. And that's a tricky one. If someone says, okay, Aura, who are you? And you start saying, okay, I'm a man, I'm this, I'm that, I'm a husband, I'm a father, whatever it is, right? In that way, that's not really who you truly are. That's how you're expressing, right? That's how you're living with this physical body. But when you come to this point of the Sat Nam, of this true identity, of this inner part where you start establishing a relationship with that aspect of yourself, now we're talking. Now you're relating to the world in a different way. Now, if something happens to you in the outside world, you can take a step back and say, okay, how does that really affect me in my true identity? And you're like, really doesn't affect me at all that I lost $1,000 on Bitcoin, you know? But in your real identity, you're like, oh my God, $1,000 is so bad, right? But so this is for me, the relating to your true identity through meditation, I think it's an amazing habit to develop. And it's really an amazing tool to use because it helps you get there.
Yeah, by the way, when people ask me that question, who are you? I tell them I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience. And I come from that which is and always will be. So, and then they just look at me like, okay.
I won't
Then
ask you again.
then I tell them, I tell them what I do, where I come from,
Yeah.
my background, my cultural background, my ethnicity. But those are all lies. That's not who I really am. That's and that's the thing of when it comes to conditioning. It's like you come into this world as that spiritual being, only to create some or be told that you're some type of other identity that you now own, and you believe that you are that identity opposed to the true identity from which you come from. And that's the big lie, and I think religion supports that a lot. And that's why what you said, we're in those crossroads now where religion is losing whatever value it once had, because it's starting to be understood as a lie that you wind up gravitating to something that's helping you lie to yourself and who you truly are. But with all that being said about who you are, can you let the people know what a Sikh is?
A Sikh, and again, like many other religion, is a religion I identified with for probably 15, 20 years of my life. Where if you would have asked me and say, oh yeah, very religious, I'm in the Sikh religion and I'm doing all these Sikh things and I'm following all these rules. And really over the last years, that has relaxed much more for me. For me, I'm still expressing in this way where I have the beard and the turban, which is very Sikh-like. But for me, that's more a tool. Again, I love the beard, I love the turban, I love what it does for me. And I don't go to the temples. I don't hang out with the community. I'm not actively involved in the leadership and in those kinds of things anymore, as I have been in the past. And I feel much better with it because I feel I'm much more approachable. I feel it's much more interesting for me to talk to people who are outside of the Sikh religion. And so for me, that's kind of where I'm at with my spiritual path in relationship to the Sikh religion. But to answer your question a little bit more precisely, Sikhs have been developed in India about 500 years ago when they had a lot of issues there in the north of India between the Muslims coming from one side and the Hindus being in India, and then ending up in the same village like humans do, right? You end up living together. But now suddenly they couldn't eat together. Their kids couldn't get married. There was all these religious blocks. And so the founder of Sikh religion, his name was Guru Nanak, came along and said, hey, aren't we all the same? Aren't we all just one? Aren't we all just spiritual beings in this human experience? Can we all just find a way to be the same? And so his first two followers in his what then later became the Sikh religion were a Hindu and a Muslim. And both of them said, like, hey, we like what this guy has to offer because it seems like the next level up from what we've been doing. And so he started bringing people together. He started having people eat together. He started doing away with the Hindu caste system and said, we're all the same. He started, not being so strict as it's in Islam, where it's like, okay, you can only be in a happy relationship with someone else who's a Muslim. And he just said, like, let's just all get along and create this. And so that was very attractive to me 20 years ago when I heard about it the first time. And for me, really the thing which helped me learn more about my spirituality in the Sikh religion was this very practical approach. There was a lot of singing, there was a lot of sharing of food, there was a lot of, hey, we're all going to go and help so-and-so with their project, or we help with a cleanup in our community. And so for me, that was real, like this, something I could touch, where I could experience my spiritual identity. So that's been my journey. But I also came to a point where it started limiting me, because I had outgrown it, kind of like I hit the ceiling where I'm like, okay, I want to go to the next level now. And Sikh religion was just not the container for that, as I don't think any of the religions are. So in my belief system, it's really like religions are great for the first 80%, but then for the last 20%, you're going to need something more.
Absolutely. I agree. And I think, all religions have truth in it. And I think that's what we tend to connect with. We connect with the truth in it.
Oh, yeah.
But then the rest of the stuff, it's like it doesn't work. And it's like the spirit, it needs more. It needs to be connected to where it comes from. And the religion will not provide that connection. Now, speaking of spirituality and this journey that you've been on, what was the inspiration for you to come to the understanding? What was the inspiration that led you on that journey to come to the understanding that you're a spiritual being having a physical experience?
I experienced it through my meditative practice, because every time I went deeper into my meditative practice, I had more of an experience of my true identity, and I felt less attached to my physical form and to how I identify, or my thoughts, or whatever. And I realized I'm so much more. This physical expression is very important, right? It's part of what I carry with me for this lifetime, already for 49 years. So it's very much part of my identity, but it's a sliver. It's the same way how my mind is part of my identity, but it's not who I am. Just because, I have some thoughts, that's not me. Same as when I experience my body, or I stomp my toe, that might hurt in the moment, but I know that's not me. That's my physical body having an experience of pain. So for me, that's kind of the process of, every time when I realize what I'm not, I'm also a step closer to what I am.
Absolutely. Wow, it's amazing. Um, when it comes to like people that want to, there's people that come on to my show, or should I say that listen to my show, and people that I see, on social media and other places, or in conversations when I'm out and about, where they're in a certain place in their life where they want to make a change. They want to start to go on that spiritual journey, because whatever they were doing ain't working for them, and they're starting to realize that there's more to life than what they thought was to life. And it's a great thing when somebody has that epiphany or that awakening moment to be like, I want to start pursuing to understanding my higher self, to understanding my true identity as that spiritual being having the physical experience. So what would you recommend for someone who is starting their spiritual path, that's right on that, in the beginning of that quest of understanding of their true self?
My recommendation would be, take it slow, have a lot of patience. Don't think there is one right answer out there, because everybody is just looking at the same centerpiece, right? The same sun or the same light in the middle. And there's all these different paths from all these different directions. And they all kind of lead to the center. And one might be very direct and very easy, and one might be really long-winded and very hard. But ultimately, all these paths lead back to creator, creation, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter what you call it, but it's the same centerpiece. And so when you come to this point where you are recognizing and feeling, maybe because you had like some big traumatic experience or something heavy happened in your life, and you're saying, I'm changing everything now, I'm becoming, this spiritual person, and I want to connect with this aspect, and I really want to travel towards the center. That is a great moment. But also, I think what we always need to keep in mind, that even if we don't do anything, we never go to church, we never go to a temple, we never meditate, we never even talk about spirituality, we never think about it, we just live a normal life where we work, we have kids, we, have sex, we go party, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just living a normal life, you are traveling back to source already, right? Just through your interactions and through your experiences in life. You might be traveling fairly slowly, but honestly, ultimately, in the big scope of the universe, time is a non-concept. Time is a concept of our duality and in this reality we live in, right? So if you take 1,000 incarnations or 100,000 incarnations, or you do it in 10, honestly, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make you any better, doesn't make you any worse, doesn't give you a special medal because you made it back quicker. Like that. It's all these human mind concepts of, oh my God, I want you to get back to source energy quicker because that's important for me. And so I'm coming up with all these cool ideas in my new religion where you can follow, and then you can get there quicker, right? So be aware around those kinds of things. My suggestion for someone who is at the beginning of this path is go inwards, be with yourself, go for a nice walk, sit on a bench, look into the forest, enjoy being present, and really recognize what there already is. How amazing that already is, all you have done, all these past lives you have incarnated to get you to this point. You don't need some guru to come and tell you which way to walk. You don't need someone to tell you how to meditate. You don't need someone to say, oh, you should never eat meat again because then you get quicker back to God. All that stuff, these are tools you can use if you feel inspired in experimenting with them. But be very aware that these are just tools and you are in this big experimental process. So if you come to a point where you say, hey, I want to be a vegan and meditate for 6 hours a day and only speak positive things in my life, then these might be 3 super cool tools to get you back to your true identity very quickly. But please be very careful that after you've done this for a year, you don't go out in the world trying to convert the rest of the 8 billion people into becoming vegans who only talk nice and meditate 6 hours a day.
It's funny because a lot of people do that. They get so overwhelmed with their they get so overwhelmed with their own experience that they want to convert everybody to be like them, not realizing that experience that they're having is for them to be a better version of themselves so that they can be that expression for that great creative source to experience. It's not so much that, that's something that I had to learn because I was that type of person where I was like, oh, I'm going to change the world. It's not my responsibility to do that. My responsibility is to be the best example of this opportunity that I've been given and to make a difference with that energy, which leads me to my next question. Let's talk about service. Let's talk about charity, because that's what service is. It's charity. It's giving and providing service to others, to your community, making a difference by being charitable to your fellow brothers and sisters in humanity, and giving back, and what that actually does for the spirit. Because one of my favorite scripts from thousands of years ago is, when you seek happiness for yourself, it eludes you. but when you seek happiness for others, you find it in yourself. So can you talk about what service to the community means for you and why that's so important, and why it's so important for somebody to be more in the spirit of giving opposed to taking?
Yeah, amazing question. And I want to tie it together with the thing you said before, because I think it's such a common thing, especially for us when we were children or growing up, is this feeling of I want to go out there and change the world. And so there's many ways to impact the world, and there's many ways to change the world. But probably the most efficient, rather than going out and telling people how they should change their life, and they're all like, oh, there's the crazy guy again, let's run the other way, is to lead by example. And when you lead by example, and when you become a better version of yourself, that's the best way to change the world. So if you go out there and you say, oh, more people should really feed the poor, because wouldn't that be an amazing planet we live on if everybody would feed 5 poor people? We would not have any poor people anymore in this world.
Right.
And so if you can turn that around and you say, okay, rather than talking about this, I'll develop something where I can feed 5 people, and I can open this up to friends of mine or people who are interested who can also invite to feed 5 people. And now suddenly this is what I do. And I do that because I want to do that. For me, that's important. And I see that through my action, people look to me and look up to me and say, oh my God, Amrit Singh is feeding 5 people. Isn't that the coolest thing ever? Maybe I can also do that. And now suddenly I'm doing something which, then very easily could, again, like detour in the religion path. Now suddenly it's like my new religion, and I put a sign up on my door and say Amrit Singh religion, and all you have to do is feed 5 people a day, and then pay also a little bit processing fee so I can run the religious house, right? So it's this kind of thing. If you can bring it back to really living a life of example, and you go out there and you uplift others and you show up for others, and that can be in a small scale, that can be in a conversation with your friends, that can be at a party with some kid which is sitting in a corner and wants to play some soccer, and you go out in the garden and kick the soccer ball. So being in service can come in many different shapes or forms. And I love the quote you gave, like, for people who are stuck in, oh my God, I'm so unhappy and I feel so depressed and I have everything and I got my Porsche in the garage and I have my big flat screen TV and I got everything on, and I'm so suffering. You're like, okay, how about you spend 2 hours every day and go to your local shelter and help sort the dirty clothes and make sure people who need it get something warm to wear for the winter? And they're like, what? What does that have to do with anything? But if you get a person like that and they trust you deep enough, maybe because you go yourself to the shelter to do 2 hours of service, right? And they come with you and they do this on a regular basis. And now suddenly their whole life changes. They're like, oh my God, I'm so blessed. I have this amazing car. I have this amazing house. I have money in my bank account. And their whole level of happiness changes. So it's really like an easy fix. When you're struggling with being unhappy, when you feel depressed, get your ass out there. Start helping anyone. It really doesn't matter. Go to your local school and help with sports or whatever. Like everybody, there's so many people who need help. But just go to the next house. Ask your neighbor what they need. I'm sure they're going to tell you.
Absolutely. Let's we have about a little bit, just about 15 minutes left for this broadcast, right? So you had mentioned to me that you wanted to kind of talk about what we were talking about offline, in regards to what I was telling you about how here in the United States, I know you're in Mexico, so it's probably a little bit different there, the way things are done culturally and stuff. But overall, the world has become a place of narcissism when it comes to the self worship on social media. Social media has infected every single place around the world that possibly has cell phone reception. And it also in America here, but it's happening in a lot of places around the world where this self worship and liberalism, this all inclusive thing that's going on right now, that in my opinion, I feel like is it's polluting the minds of human beings. But I wanted to get your take on it because I'm seeing a world that's becoming very narcissistic where it's losing humanity is losing empathy on a large scale, where human beings are not seeing each other as human beings anymore. They don't even want to see the other person. They only want to see themselves, and they only have a desire to fulfill their egoic desires. And I see it becoming a big, big problem to where the problem is because people are becoming like that, the powers that shouldn't be are able to manipulate society a lot easier because
Yeah.
we've become weakened spiritually.
Yeah. Oh, very much. And I agree. And the example which came to my mind is living in a big city. And I think that's something we've all experienced in some shape or form, even if you haven't lived there, you visited some big city somewhere where people like New York is such a great example. You know, everybody wears black in New York. Everybody like will look down either at their phone or at the street in front of them. There's no making of eye contact because that's like too overwhelming. The reason they wear black is the same reason people at funerals wear black, because it condenses your aura and it makes you very safe and very contained. So it's a great color to wear when you want to condense yourself. The reason a doctor or the captain on the cruise ship or the bride wears white is because it expands you. You know, when you wear white, everybody looks at you, everybody sees you from far away, and your aura expands. So, connected to this, back to the big city example, you're walking on the street, you're very much in your own little world, maybe you're on your cell phone, wearing your black clothes, getting to where you have to be, you're busy, you're doing stuff, and you have to blend out the other 1,000 people that are on the street with you, because for your true self and for your true identity, that would be too overwhelming. You know, if you would just look up and start looking at people's faces and start getting in touch with their story, you know, probably a bunch of your listeners too are empathic, where you can feel everything. You know what everybody's going through, you experience everything, and it's extremely overwhelming. And so people do this and they close off and they shut themselves down as a way to protect themselves and to be more human. So, for example, when you walk through the forest and another human comes towards you, you will look in their face and greet them, because that's what humans do with each other. And if you see that other human is in distress, you will probably step out of your way and be like, hey, do you need help? Is something going on? Because that's our human tendency. We are trained to not act like that. We tell our kids, oh, if you are seeing someone who is lying in a ditch bleeding, like, keep going really fast, don't stop. It's probably a trap and they want to rob you, right? So it's this mindset which has changed our humanness to a point where we are now fearing being human, expressing in this human way. And it's much safer to have that fake mask on, and that mask of social media, and that mask of, oh yeah, look, everything is perfect. And someone says, how are you? You know, it's a great one in the United States. You say, oh, I'm fine. How are you? And they don't even want to know how you are. They just, it's this part of this exchange, right?
Right.
If you say, oh my God, I had such a rough morning and I cried and it was so challenging, and they're like, oh my God, he's telling me what's going on with him, I better get rid of this guy quickly. So that's the world we live in.
Right. That is so true. That, you know, I grew up in New York City, so everything you said, it's like I lived that. I lived that. Yeah, just, you know, it was almost like you would pick and choose, because there were people that I did help in New York, but I picked and choose. I didn't help everybody because there were certain people I was like, I don't know about this one, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then there was other people where it was like, you know, this is the right thing to do, and I need to help out or whatever. Um, and I still struggle with that to this day. It's ingrained in me, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I'm not going to be the guy that if I see somebody who has a flat tire on the side of the road, pull over and say, "Hey, how can I help?" You know,
Mhm.
I'm gonna be like, "Well, they got a phone. Call AAA."
Yeah, 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 exactly.
You know what I mean? So, um, the last thing I want to say is, I think you know, you and I were able to cover a lot in an hour's time, and for me, that's a short period of time because you know I can do 2 hour, 3 hour episodes, but I think we were able to cover a lot in regards to spirituality versus religion without really having to go deep into religion. I think that this conversation has been an eye opener for me, and I hope for the listeners in having an understanding on why spirituality is so important because that is your true identity. You are a spiritual being. So with that being said, um is there any last things you want to leave the listeners with? And also, before you say your last words, I wanted to ask another quick question that I forgot to ask. Why Mexico? Because it's kind of interesting. You ever lived in the United States?
I visited a lot over the last 20 years. I would come for at least 4 or 5 weeks every year, but I never lived there.
Where were you born?
In Germany. I'm
That's
German
right. I
originally.
remember you telling me that when we first met. So, Germany, India, and then to Mexico. Why Mexico?
Actually, simple answer. My wife is Mexican. You know, we've been married for 20 years. She came with me to India. She came to live in Germany with me. And this was really the natural next step for us to say, like, hey, we're not going to do more COVID lockdown in Germany. We're moving to Mexico where life is much lighter and more beautiful. And I mean,
Right.
it's a blessing.
Absolutely. Great. Okay, good. All right. So, any last words that you want to leave the listeners with? And by the way, for the people that are, you know, that are going to download this show, you if you want more information from Amrit Singh, you can go to coachingnow.info, which is a link in the description page, and he's offering a free 20-minute call to those that are interested in finding out more about how a coach can help them on their journey.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for mentioning that. And this is definitely something I want to encourage people to do because, funny enough, I do these podcasts quite regularly and I never get anyone signing up for these 20-minute sessions. And it's funny because I think it has to do with them having some thoughts around what it would mean. So I just want to, for you as the listener, if you're hearing this and you have like an intuition, like a small little voice, and you say, oh, wouldn't that be cool to talk to Amrit Singh for free for 20 minutes, half
Right?
an hour?
Take
Do it.
advantage of
Come
it.
on, don't be weird about it. I'm not gonna twist your arm and make you pay me tons of money so you can work with me. It's all on you. Take advantage of this. I love helping people, and for me, this is really, it's inspiration, and I love connecting with new people. And who knows, maybe there's someone out there who end up working with me, but maybe there's someone who just needs 30 minutes of help, and that's all they need for that day, and I'll be happy to help.
Yeah,
But
that's great. That's great. Go ahead. What was the other thing you wanted to
yeah,
say?
I want to also share I'm on TikTok. I love TikTok. So if you are one of the people who doesn't hate TikTok, because I know there's two camps, come join me on TikTok. It's super fun. I post something every day. And so that's why I love connecting with people.
Actually, what I'm going to do too, I forgot to mention it to you, to the listeners, but I am going to do this anyway. Um, I'm going to have your website on there, your Facebook, your LinkedIn, your Instagram, and your TikTok.
Super.
TikTok is very good to me. So, TikTok is one of those things where I um I get a lot of support and it steadily grows. So I'm a TikTok lover as well.
Oh, good. Yeah, awesome. Let's connect.
Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, I'll send you a message when I connect your TikTok page to the podcast, because I'm going to transfer this for all the listeners that don't follow me on on YouTube or whatever. This is all going to be available on all podcasting platforms right after this is done. So, Amrit, thank you for coming on to Network of Awareness. Greatly appreciated. I think you provided a great amount of substance for the show. I'm going to leave you a great rating on Podmatch. And, when I come out with season 6, I think I'm going to invite you back. And when you have the time, and we can have a little bit more an extensive conversation on this spirituality thing, and give the listeners something to think about.
Yeah, totally. So, I love that. And I do want to add, because in my mind, something came up I wanted to share about as my last words around spirituality and religion.
Absolutely.
If you are on a religious path, right, and you've been doing religion all your life, and that's been part of your experience and your identity, don't just throw it all in the trash can just because you listen to our podcast today. I would say, like, really reevaluate what religion gives you, where it serves you, where it limits you, and just kind of open your mind around it a little bit. And then invite more of that spirituality into your life. And that you can do while you're in church, while you're in the temple, while you're praying, while you're with your congregation, but just connect to this aspect of your true identity and see where those two overlap. And keep that, right? Keep those things from the religion where you feel that overlap, but also allow yourself the space to question the rest, where you're like, hey, I can't really relate to that spiritually, but this is part of my religion. So review those parts and maybe very gently just release them out of your life and stay connected to your true identity. And if spirituality does that for you, awesome. And if religion helps you with that, even better. So that would be my last words for today's episode.
Well, that's a great final message to leave the listeners with. And I hope that those that are going to be listening to this podcast, that they really pay heed to that message, because it's very important. And there's a lot of meaning to what she said. So with that being said, I want to thank everybody who tuned in. And like I always say, when you live in the present, there's always an opportunity for a new beginning. And if you are starting a new beginning on your spiritual journey, be patient, like Amrit said. And don't look for the light at the end of the tunnel, brothers and sisters, in this truth, because the light is and always will be within you. So light up the tunnel and find your way through the darkness. This is Or the Information, saying peace, love, and light. And all praises to the great creator, Most High.